What's going on? It's your boy DameSmiff, and I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit more about musicianship and finances. I think this is kind of gonna be like how we do this channel. It just feels good talking about money and like helping you guys out and things like that. So, if you guys are interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button for the algorithm so you guys can help others find this video, and subscribe so you're up to date when I do post and you can see all the other crazy stuff I'm posting on here. So, as I was saying, musicianship and finances, how they're related. That's pretty much the topic. I think I'm gonna figure out some weird crazy title, some catchy title for you guys, but this is essentially to help, maybe let's say young musicians who want to get started. Maybe you're a student, you're like a music student in class right now and you're watching this and you're trying to figure out, how can I get rich? I play trumpet, help, right? Or maybe you're a rapper and you in the hood, you watching this on your phone or in your living room and you like, I'm just taking a break between writing rhymes, bagging up some weed, and I'm trying to figure out how I can really get to the bread. I think we're gonna go over the basics today. We're gonna dig into it more, but I think I want to use a lot of different resources going into the conversation. So today I'm just gonna just talk to you. And I think we're gonna start from the young musicians, you students. And when I say young, I like to use the word young because I want to have my old, like literally older musicians feel welcomed when they start picking up an instrument, because there's people who pick up an instrument at like 40 years old, 50 years old, 60, 70 years old, and they have their own hurdles to get over when it comes to this conversation. And so when I say young, I mean inexperienced, meaning like you played your instrument for less than 10 years, you're a 10-year old, you know. And so that conversation for, the let's say inexperienced musicians, they typically will have to deal with their habits when it comes to finances, and that the habits are usually developed at home or within your culture and your neighborhood, right? And so what do I mean by that? That means that if you're a musician and you have an instrument already, meaning your school provides you one, your parents gave you one, or your cousin, or you just bought one yourself, you have to have certain habits to make sure that instrument is well taken care of and that it's going to be able to perform for you when you need it in order for you to make the money you want, right? And so that's going to be something that, like I said, you have to develop at home. So that could be something like cleaning up after yourself, being on time, making sure you understand how, etiquette, meaning like manners. You have manners, you know how to talk to people and things like that. If you don't have these things in order, it's going to be very difficult for you to make money. Very difficult. And you may even sometimes get lucky and wind up making money, but then it'll be hard to keep it. And so let's explain what that means first. So now this is where the older musicians may have some information they can provide, but you kind of could still learn from this. So what do I mean by that? Let's say tomorrow you're a young musician, and let's say you're a college musician, and then some scout or recruiter comes along and says, I want to help you join my orchestra or my band. You should join the military orchestra, right? Or whatever. You decide to ask a few questions and you go, well, how much will I make? Right? That seems like a great opportunity. Maybe I can make something from that. And you start to think, well, if I get the gig, what do they want from me? Okay. And so if you ask yourself that question, you're on the right track to getting good habits. So usually what people expect of, let's say, hiring a musician is for them to be on time, to have manners, and to understand that they need to maintain their instrument to be able to perform properly, right? So if you don't have those things in place or one of those things are missing, that means that when it's time for them to give you a deadline for, let's say, a rehearsal or starting a gig or maybe coming to another practice or helping them with something, anything, you're helping them do anything. If you're not punctual, you will be late, which will cause them to look at you as somebody who's hindering them and stopping them from making money. And then on the other hand, if you get called to a gig and you didn't maintain your instrument, when it's time to perform, it will go wrong, or something will go wrong, or you will have to struggle and deal with the problems of your instrument. And then, of course, lastly, if you have bad manners, nobody wants to work with somebody that's annoying, uncool, corny, or creepy, right? So you want to find ways to be likable, even if it's not like boisterous or in your face. People are okay with, behind the scenes people, but we generally want to like the people we work with, okay? And so those three things are going to be pretty much paramount for you to be able to start making money as a musician, okay? And so the reason why I was pointing that out for the older musicians, some older musicians are stuck in their habits. Meaning, like, if you picked up an instrument at 50, but you have a cantankerous attitude, we will be very hesitant to work with you. If you want to be a singer because you used to sing at church, but you want to join our band and you're a bit of a diva, we might not like working with you. And so that goes across the board, no matter what age, where you're from, man, woman, it doesn't matter. So now when we're thinking about, okay, we're let's say we're actually beginning to see money. We're getting paid for our gigs as a musician, or let's say you're a producer and you're selling beats and things like that. You may have your characteristics in check. You got your good manners, you're on time, and you're maintaining your business, and you understand that, right? Now you want to make sure that this is going to be something that you can either grow or invest or scale. And when people say the word scale, a lot of times when I used to think the word scale, I'll use myself for an example. When I used the word scale or heard the word scale before, I used to think that you would just do uh business more efficient, but with, I guess, more vigor. You would try to, if you sold 10 cupcakes a week, now you're gonna sell 100. That's scaling, right? But really what scaling really means is that you develop systems that make growing easier. That's really what scaling is. It's not necessarily that you're just working harder. Like you're really thinking about how to make more of what you're doing successfully and consistently. And so for a musician, it can be hard to figure that out and visualize it if you're not the person who's maybe doing the numbers for your streams, if you're not the person doing your ticket sales and really understanding the audience's experience when they come to your shows. So this is part of the maintenance part of your business where you really need to understand, like, okay, I'm a singer, but when people come to see me sing, is that the real reason they're spending their money? Is that the only reason? Can I find other ways to where this is going to make, more sense as far as they feel like your audience feels like they're getting the most value for their money, and you also are getting the most money, that's the key thing, right? And I think when it comes to this for musicians, it's often really thought about it from the sense of give me more money because I put out more music. And that's not how it works. This is where you have to use manners. You're going to have to be able to communicate with your audience, maybe develop ways to listen to your audience. And that's kind of hard for musicians because we're always in the creative mode, meaning we always have to feel like um, what we're going to say, it has to push the needle versus needing to react and cater to our audience and things like that. And this is key to making money because this means that people again will like you and want to spend more money with you. And similar to how you hear, rappers make these, quotes and things like that about like being a drug dealer, it's kind of like that. It's like you sell a product and they want it from you because they like you, not necessarily because you're just the greatest guy ever. It's just that we really like you and we support you. And because of your, let's say, your transparency or your commitment to just being transparent, makes people like you. They can find more reasons to like you than you being off putting, distant, or we can't really figure out what's going on in your head or behind the scenes. Excuse me. And so now when I'm considering, like, myself and like different things like that, I wound up finding myself looking for ways to involve more of the fan in my process. But through that, I had to get through, let's say, mentoring through like business and sales and things like that. And one of the things I learned was that you do want to find ways as a good businessman to solve problems for people. And so this is one of the things I talked about early on in the channel about being an artist in society and your role in society and things like that. You can check that out later. But essentially, you have to be able to communicate with your audience, figure out what they need and give it to them and actually satisfy that need. If you don't do that, then you're just like a cook who's cooking food we don't want to eat. That's how that looks. So for me personally, that was fitness. I found that for people like me, a fitness journey was super helpful, and my music was kind of like not going to solve that problem. So I had to kind of learn how to become and immerse myself into the solution for that problem, and that then created people to kind of ask the question, well, who are you? And then I can tell them, well, I'm a musician. And then we can get into the conversation about, beats and music and all that other cool stuff, right? But the greatest thing about that is that it makes the money that comes from music easy, because I don't have to think about it as far as like, do these people like me? I'm just, using my manners. Now, when it comes to maintaining everything, this is where you want to make sure you have like all your legal things in order. So when people do go click your links and things like that, does your website look official? If you don't have a website, does your social media look official? Does your YouTube channel look official? Are you active? Like, did you post within the past, let's say, week on your YouTube or Instagram and things like that? Um, are you collaborating with other people? Are people talking about you? If you don't maintain this, meaning this notoriety, this visibility online and in person, meaning you're in people's face and you're in people's face and they like that you're in their face. If you don't maintain that, then you will see a disruption in your finances. You will see people not clicking your videos, not DMing you, not checking for you, because they just don't see you. Out of sight, out of mind. Now, that's something that many musicians struggle with, because we want to be in the studio and just make music, and that's not how that works. I was told that as well. I had to learn this too. That means that you can spend all day in the basement making music, but if you don't come outside and we see you, we're not really gonna want to hear what you're doing. You're just kind of like a king that no one knows is a king, and it doesn't really make sense, right? And so this is also something that I think the older musicians can relate to, because you kind of see what it takes to be consistent over time, but it may not be within music. And so I think a lot of younger musicians kind of have to figure out how they want to be consistent and what really works for them. Because going back to trying to scale, you can burn out. You can do like some amazing stuff in your 20s and think like, okay, I want to chill out by my 30s, but that could take a hit in your career because you want to chill out. So you kind of have to really be intentional about how you want your career to really end. So what do I mean by that? That means that when you see like a rapper or something like that and they're in the news, or maybe they got some big court case or something like that, a crazy breakup, or crazy relationship, when you see stuff like that, that's the notoriety that your career has gotten. It didn't happen from music. It didn't happen from your musicianship. It didn't happen from how well you play your notes or sing your notes. So that's very, very important for you to understand that early on, that that is not why we are clicking your video. That is not why we're saying your name and things like that. So then when you do get older and you want to put out a song and you want to make it work, you know what options you have. A lot of times we see people get popular outside of music, and then they kind of are confused as to why their newest music is not what we're talking about. We may be talking about their oldest hits or some crazy event that happened with them and things like that. And it doesn't really help or translate into making money for them. And so I think that's pretty much how I want to lay that out going into finances for musicians. I want to get you guys to wrap your mind around who you are as a person and what you will do with money when you get it, and why you're doing anything you're doing with the money you get from music, and whether it's from music. So put it in the comments if it's something you struggle with, and I'll help you guys out about how you can, build a little bit of a better system when it comes to maybe getting started with your finances as a musician. But that's it for me, y'all. I will see you guys tomorrow night. I'm out.